It takes a lot to earn the attention of a full house of boisterous, blabby people in their 20s. But the creepy, freaky remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre did it. There was not a peep from the crowd except for the regular screams of shock. This is a hard-working, inventive, and superbly filmed terror flick. First goes the quote that Rob Lowery of the Sun Herald gave when the 2003 remake of the horror classic The Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out. And as a matter of fact, that actual quote is on the back of the DVD cover. Hi there, I'm Miller Sipka, and this is the Apatros Review. In this episode, we take a look at this, the 2003 remake of The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, this film was actually it was directed by Marcus Nispel, a German-born director who made a few music videos and then made this his debut in the Hollywood system, and went on to make a bunch of other films, including the Friday the 13th remake. It was written by Scott Koza and based on the 1974 film The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, written by Toby Hooper and Kim Henkel. It was produced by Michael Bay and Mark Fleiss, and stars Jessica Biel, Andrew Braniarski, Arlie Ermey, Jonathan Tucker, and Eric Balfour. Now the DVD, this is the Australian DVD from Roadshow Entertainment. It's a single-laid disc. It's got 185 anamorphic widescreen, English 5.1 and English stereo, English subtitles, and the only supplement is a trailer. I'll talk about the disc later on. Now this film was an American production and theatrically released, and premiered in USA on the 15th of October 2003. Went into general release in the US and Canada on the 17th of October 2003, and then UK on the 31st of October 2003, and then Australia on the 20th of November 2003, then in Italy on the 28th of November 2003, then in New Zealand on the 22nd of January 2004, and then in Japan on the 20th of March 2004. So basically it premiered in Japan a day before I turned to 19. Interesting. Now, this film was met with rather mixed reviews from the critics. Roger Ebert, ever in the thorn in the side of the horror genre, gave this a 0 stars rating, while the movie-going public enjoyed the film so much that it became a success and actually was ultimately responsible for starting off the postmillennial remake fad. Now, taking the association with the original film out of the equation for a moment, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not exactly a classic in the postmillennial horror genre, but it is on its own terms an agreeably slick, fast-paced and solidly enjoyable retread in the shoes of the infamous Thomas Hewitt, a human face-wearing serial killer known as Leatherface. Plot-wise, the remake is similar to the original. 5 teens are driving across Texas on their way to a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert. Never mind the fact that the song Sweet Home Alabama, which they're listening to on their radio, wasn't released until 1974, whereas the film is set in August 1973. That's not the only anachronism, as Leatherface's chainsaw is a Husqvarna 359 XP, which simply didn't exist in 1973, and the driver's licenses of the teens all have their birth dates in 1992, possibly making them time travelers. When along the way they pick up a disturbed teenage girl, who then sends her brains out the van into the Texas countryside by way of a revolver smuggled in a rather intimate place. Shaken by the stranger's suicide, the 5 friends arrive at a nearby homestead to report the suicide, only to fall victim to a family of inbred hicks, whose patriarch is posing as the town sheriff, the legendary Arlie Ermey, basically a drill instructor from the Full Metal Jacket, and who love to dine on human flesh, although that particular detail is largely omitted from this particular film. Only one of them survives to escape and raise the alarm. Wonder who it is. Now, a number of old hands from the original film reprise their roles here. Daniel C. Pearl, the original film's director of photography, returned to lens this one, and he was the one who convinced the director Marcus Nispel, a friend of his, to make the film, wanting to have his own career come full circle, while John Larroquette, the narrator of the original film, was happy to return to do the narration here. As for newbies on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre block, Andrew Braniarski, who played Leatherface here, personally asked producer Michael Bay to cast him as Leatherface at a Christmas party. Erica Learson screamed so loudly during her screen test that people in other parts of the building where they were holding tests called the police, thinking there was a woman being attacked. And Eric Balfour, one of the teens, on his last day of shooting, stripped down to his birthday suit, tossed his wardrobe to the crew, and walked out of the set into the night wearing only his baseball cap. There are also a couple other time travelers to note here too. Ain't Too Cool news critic Harry J. Knowles has his severed head served up on a silver platter, literally in fact, in Leatherface's lair. When I saw that, I laughed my head off. And Sheriff Hoyt's sidearm is a Ruger Vaquera revolver, which wasn't around 1973 and still coming out to the market in 1980. By the way, the revolver that the suicidal hitchhiker used to blow brains out is a snub-nosed Smith & Wesson Model 19, if you're the gun freaks. Now that being said, this remake keeps the tradition of the original film and having most of the deaths done by something other than a chainsaw, here only being 2 victims of the saw. There was a deleted epilogue where the final girl is interviewed decades later, being in the loony bin for all that time, which does keep in nature with the weird rumours that went around when the original film was made, regarding the fate of Marilyn Burns, actress who starred in that one. Now, while it's not exactly within striking distance of the quality of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this remake does have an air of slickness that helps the film be more accessible to the audiences of the early 2000s. On a personal note, the film came out around the time I graduated from high school, but at the time I wasn't able to see it since my parents never allowed it. Although by that time I already seen owned DVD copies of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre in my collection. Now, since the horror fans at that time weren't going to watch a rough as hell quality film in the cinemas, that's for damn sure. Now, while I hated the way that Michael Bay approached his remakes, at least with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre ones, he kept his usual proclivities for massive explosions and CGI overkill far away. For what was his first ever Hollywood feature, German-born music video director Michael Nispel delivers his best film here, as he handles the darkness of the story very well, helped by Daniel Pearl's experience in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and this is the only film so far where you see Leatherface's real face. Now, the cast also proved up to the challenge, with Jessica Biel proving rather spunky in her attitude as the final girl of the piece, while Arlie Ermey proves to be the ultimate nasty bastard in this universe, even nastier than Leatherface himself. And Terrence Evans is an equally nasty hood as the legless grandpa, Old Monty. While the gore here isn't as explicit as gorehounds would like, it's still heavier than the original film, which itself only had a split finger for gore, but had the infamous psychological effect that made people of the day believe they saw extreme gore, when there wasn't any. Now here you see something similar effect, but there are only a handful of gore effects visible here. Amongst those gore effects are a rather gimmicky, but still quite cool tracking shot that goes right through the hole in the head of the suicide hitchhiker girl, Leatherface losing his right arm, and Sheriff Hoyt getting run over not once, not even twice, but thrice, 3 times, for good measure. There was a bit of a problem when you take into account the prequel that came out a few years later, as the slaughterhouse that Leatherface works in here is still in business, and considerably cleaner than the likes of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. But in this case, it's not a goof continuity-wise, since this film came out first, and the prequel stuffed that one detail up. Now, as far as remakes go, you can do better, but you can also do a heck of a lot worse. This 2003 rejig is pretty decent, and because it came out at a time when horror remakes had not yet saturated the market, in fact this was actually the first of them, it felt pretty new when it came out. It certainly left quite a few people, particularly the younger demographic who obviously went around to see the then 30-year-old original during its theatrical release, relatively slack-jawed. Leatherface even looks considerably meaner this time around. Having personally seen the awesome original, the just as good as but darkly hilarious Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and this rejig and its prequel, I have to say this is a respectable third in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre totem pole so far. It skillfully updates the story for today's production standards, but stays true to its story roots by staying in that same time period, and the added bit of gruesome show to hook in the gorehounds, but saves its real strength for the acting, particularly from Arlie Ermey, who is definitely a nasty son of a bitch here. So, all things considered, the film that launched the postmillennial remake market, the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, earns itself a B, 6 out of 10, making a perfectly solid rejig of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and along with its prequel at the beginning, the only good Texas Chainsaw Massacre films to be made during the 21st century. Now for gore nudity. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre had no gore, almost. There was only like a bloody thing, that was it. But the brutality of the killings were infamous for their psychological trickery. As for this remake, a little more gore is visible, with people getting hooked on meat hooks, one of those getting stabbed to death as a mercy killing, not one, at least once chainsaw killing, a couple of chainsaw severed limbs, including Leatherface losing an arm, and Sheriff Hoyt getting run over thrice. Not really that gory, but the remake's violence is indeed brutal as fuck. As for nudity, well, no bare skin here, but during the scene where she mercy kills her friend, Jessica Biel's tank top is soaking wet, and you can see her nipples through it. She's not wearing a bra, it appears. Now for the DVD. This DVD I'm reviewing here is the original Australian DVD from Roadshow Entertainment, and was a skeleton disc, which is my term for a DVD from a major label that comes without any sort of supplement except for a trailer at best. Something that some companies used to do. And in fact, I mean, in the early days of the DVD market, MGM and 20th Century Fox usually came out their films with on DVD with nothing but a trailer. Of course, then in the early 2000s, Studio Canal in Australia released a bunch of films, including quite a few 80s John Carpenter classics. And those first generation Studio Canal discs they had no extras, maybe a trailer on some of them, and usually like subtitles for foreign languages, and yeah. Of course, those days are again commonplace because these days some of the DVDs from specialist labels tend to have no extras on it. So skeleton discs are now commonplace again. Now for this one, Roadshow also managed to release a special edition version with plenty of supplemental materials on a 2-disc set. But this was strictly a limited edition version and has long been out of print, while this disc is still around with a reworked cover. I should point out that this film is in Australia is rated MA15+, which means that unless you're 15 years or older, you can't watch this without a parental adult guardian. And it's rated that way for high-level violence. Now, as long as you're not in the market for supplemental materials, that disc is good enough for your collection. The print quality is excellent, even giving a good deal of age to it. I remember being close to graduating high school when this movie came out. I feel old sometimes. I'm 37 now. And so it ain't exactly brand spanking new. But this age does give it a good deal of character. It feels more natural to watch, and some of those high-definition transfers look like somebody stripped all the grain from the print, making it resemble a shot in high-definition video look. I hate those kind of things. Unless it's from the German underground. Those crazy German gorehounds are the only ones who can successfully rock the shot in video look. I personally prefer natural film over this digital video crap. Anyway. Now, for the sound, the two soundtracks here are also very good. The English 5.1 in the 448 kilobyte range, and the backup English stereo in the 224 kilobyte range. Both are excellent, and you're not going to complain about those unless you're one of those DTS snobs. Now, these are backed up by English subtitles for the hearing impaired, or for those young horror fans who want to watch this on family TV in the middle of the night without waking the parents up. I used to do that back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, watching my original collection DVDs and some of my late fuzz VHS tapes. So I understand the need for a working set of subtitles. As for the supplement, there's only a trailer. Okay, so pretty much Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 gets a B, 6 out of 10. It's solid. And, come to think of it, actually, when I was watching this for this review, this is the first time I actually watched the film. I've had the DVD in a long time. I've got like 2,000 DVDs, so, you know, it takes time. Okay, hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. Now, I don't do requests, but if you have any questions about films or DVDs, just hit me up in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer. Hope you guys are staying safe, take it easy, and that's it for this review. See ya.